And we find that the king, it says in verse 20, it says, he commanded the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and cast them into the burning fiery furnace. So the king, he was not pleased with what Meshach and Shadrach and Abednego were saying, and he would have them cast into the furnace, and he picked his strongest men, strongest soldiers there, and to bind them and to cast them into the furnace. And we know that the king said, that he ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than ever before. It was so hot that it consumed the soldiers that were putting Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego into the furnace. It's a very serious matter to harm God's children tonight. That's something we need to keep in mind. God does not take that lightly when someone is harming His children tonight. God will look after us. God will protect us. Many people probably have lost their life as a result of harming believers in God. These soldiers, they lost their life. They were consumed right on the spot. But Meshach and Shadrach and Abednego, they went on into the furnace. They fell into the furnace. And we find that a few minutes later, they were walking around, and the king took notice and went to the mouth of the furnace there, no doubt, and he saw what was going on. He says here in verse 25, he answered and said, Lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt. And the form of the fourth is like the Son of God. Amen. God was there. God was with them, and He was with. God will not leave us. He will not forsake us. He will go with us all the way. He tells us that He won't leave us. We can depend upon Him. We can have confidence in Him tonight. He was there amidst the fiery furnace with the 3 Hebrew children. He was there protecting them, keeping them safe. And He will do that for you tonight, friend, if you'll only trust in Him. These men had a great trust, a great faith in God, and that's what we must do tonight. We must believe in Him. We must trust in Him. And God will help us if we'll only trust in Him. And we know that Nebuchadnezzar, he in verse 28, he says, Then Nebuchadnezzar spake and said, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who hath sent His angels and delivered His servants that trusted in Him, have changed the king's word, and yielded their bodies that they might not serve or worship any god except their own God. So we see that Nebuchadnezzar changed his mind. When we see what God can do, if only people, if only you can see what God can do in your life. If you'll only take note of what God is doing in other people's life. And I think that got Nebuchadnezzar's attention. He was very upset when they would not bow down and worship Him and His images and His gods and so forth. But we see here that when he saw God in action, he changed his heart and changed his mind. God can change your heart tonight. God can change your mind. He can change your thinking if you'll only trust in Him. He can get you, set you forth on the right path if you'll only turn to Him. We can see that Nebuchadnezzar changed his mind, and he allowed these men to serve their God. Thank God, we have freedom to serve God in this country, and we're very thankful for that tonight. But we know that Nebuchadnezzar, he went back, he changed his mind later on. It took a little bit of doing for God to completely get Nebuchadnezzar's mind changed. He changed. He changed him into an animal-like figure there, and for a while, a time, but eventually he got the point that God was dealing with his heart. God may be dealing with your heart tonight if you'll trust Him, if you'll turn Him. That's what you need to do tonight. They trusted in God, and they were delivered. They were delivered from the fiery furnace. You know, God can deliver you tonight. I don't know what you're going through tonight. You may be going through trials and troubles. You may have problems in your life. You may not know God tonight. But God can deliver you. Be assured God can deliver you. One question I want to ask you tonight. Do you know God the way that these three men knew Him? They knew God in a very personal way. They loved God. They served God. They desired to be in God's presence. And do you know Him in that way? The only way to God is through Jesus tonight. You cannot bypass God's Son, the Lord Jesus Christ. He is the way, the truth, and the life. No man come to the Father but by Him.